Hey, what's up everyone? In this video, we're going to be looking at a few random and obscure video game handhelds. Now, we're all familiar with handhelds like the Game Boy, the PSP, and even the Game Gear, but have you heard of the Lexibook? Probably not. Anyway, let's start with this Game Boy looking one by the company My Arcade. It's got that old school look and has buttons that kind of remind me of the Super Nintendo, although they feel more like Xbox buttons. The D-pad is rubbery but firm and clicky, and the games are pretty generic, but some are actually pretty fun, and the graphics are probably on par with that of the Super Nintendo, or at least like the Turbo graphics. You got your Bomberman clone, your Contra clone, and some other really cool ones. They're not nearly as polished as the originals, but they're okay to play for a few minutes. The sound is also great, and the buttons even light up, so not a bad console, especially for like 20 bucks. All right, next up is the Lexibook. This is probably the tiniest handheld I've seen in a while. It weighs almost nothing and feels a lot like the Game Boy Micro. But let me tell you, the games on this thing really suck. First of all, it's only got like 8 really simple games, and the button layout just feels off. I think I paid like $10 for this thing, and while it's not the worst thing ever, it's hard justifying to pay $10 for this when there are better handhelds out there. Speaking of which, here's another $10 handheld which I reviewed in another video. It's called the Melusin, and it's got a bunch of NES games, and the screen is really nice. You might see these at the dollar stores or Amazon, or maybe even at like a Walgreens or CVS at the checkout section. It's got a bunch of different accessories, including cables to hook it up to a TV, and even an extra controller for multiplayer. It's an excellent handheld, especially if you're into retro games, and it's only 10 bucks. Next, we have the Atari Portable Deluxe handheld. This can be pretty expensive depending on where you get it from. It's got most, if not all, of the Atari classics. I feel like this thing has way too many buttons. Atari games only really use like one button, yet this thing has like 8. The device also has an option for SD cards, which you can use for playing your own games. And believe it or not, this handheld actually has a really bad screen. It's hard to explain, but the screen just feels blurry, and you have to hold it at the right angle for it to look right. All right, finally, we have another handheld by the My Arcade company. This one is a cheaper version of the other one I showed earlier. Its button and screen layout is similar to that of the Game Boy Advance, but the color scheme is that of the NES. It's got less games than the other one, and there's no option for the buttons to light up. It's got 220 games, all of which I think are different from what I can tell, but they are very simple pick up and play games. Not a bad handheld, but also not the best on this list. Anyway, I hope I shed some light on these less known handhelds. They're really not that bad, especially for the price. If you're looking to play simple games for cheap, then you can't go wrong with any of these handhelds. Anyway, that is all for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Thanks.